Hello, everyone. You're listening to Northern Flights, a Park Pro podcast keeping you up to date with the people, tournaments, and culture of disc golf in Canada and beyond. Consider becoming a Patreon today at patreon.com/parkpro. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Disc Golf Park. And now your hosts, Andre, Jesse, and Matt.
Hello. Hi, Matt. Hi.
Hey, guys. Sorry, one of my eyes forgot to start working there. What's
welcome
up?
in.
That's
Welcome
just
into
for the YouTube people.
Yeah. Welcome into episode 17. This one's going to be a shorter one. We promise this time. There's not a lot of news and notes going on, but we do have a very special interview that we recorded a couple weeks ago. And if you are a patron, you would have heard it already. But if you're not a patron, you're going to listen to it now. And that is with one Scott Stokely. So he's got a lot of good insight and a lot of good knowledge. We highly recommend you going to the YouTube channel to watch that one because he does give some tips and he uses his hands. Sometimes they're at a screen, but he does use his hands to highlight some of what he's trying to say. So definitely check that one out on YouTube if you're listening on your favorite podcast network.
And you won't believe where he calls us from.
Right.
Make a guess right now in the comments or just in your head. Where in the world is Scott Stokely? And then we'll see if you're right.
Yeah. He's likely not even in the same spot anymore at this point. But
well,
Okay.
I did just see on Facebook that he just won a tournament in Japan.
wrong.
Wow.
That's not where he was at this tournament, though.
That's not what I was guessing. But he said it's his first time playing in Japan in 25 years. And he's talking about how much the scene is caught up in Asia and how there's some really great golfers in Japan. So that's kind of cool to see.
Totally. Yeah. It's awesome.
It is awesome. More on Japan. I'm just well of facts today. They got rid of their 150 gram requirement for golf discs.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing because I saw him posting pictures and I was like, why is he giving them those discs? Those are heavier than 150 grams.
Yeah.
So
Illegal. No, not anymore. And I think that's really cool. It goes a long way to like standardizing the sport internationally. And I mean, just thinking about it, I've always thought Japan Open would be an awesome event to go to. I've never been to Asia. Be cool to mix in some golf. But then I thought, I have to putt with a 150 gram disc. And that just throws the whole thing for me. I can't go.
yeah, totally.
Do you think it was seeing the coverage of Eagle McMahon grenading a max weight disc onto somebody's head and that person survived? Do you think they were like, okay, we can probably allow 180 gram discs? If that doesn't kill a man.
Yeah, 150 gram disc won't. I think that change came in like over a year ago now.
Huh. Crazy.
Yeah, I had a friend talking about going to the Japan Open, but it got degraded from some special world tour thing to a different level thing, and that part I'm not too up on. But yeah.
Might be worth looking into for sure.
Cool to see anyway.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of Japan, always wanted to go. So, but yeah, how's your guys' weeks been in the world of disc golf?
In the world of disc golf, well, I practiced putt a couple times.
Nice.
That hurt my heart a little bit. No, ended up doing okay.
Good.
Other than that, not a very disc golfy week for me. I watched only the FPO side of Texas State's,
Yeah.
which is awesome. We'll get to that later. And I got non-disc golf news. I'm going back to university again.
What? For what?
Computer science.
Nice.
Yeah, your boy's gonna be a code monkey.
That's awesome.
Good
Remote
for you.
excited. I'm
So
excited.
remotely, back to back, no breaks. So I'm gonna do a 4-year degree in 2 years because I have qualifying electives from my other
Perfect.
degree. Hopefully gonna come out a full blown nerd in 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
Are you worried about AI taking the job of coders?
So I can specialize in my last 2 semesters, and I am heavily considering AI, just the way the trends are going and things like that.
Yeah.
But AI is really good for some things, as I understand it at this point, but the human element of starting these projects and managing them and stuff is never really going to go away fully. So
No, totally. Cool. That's exciting.
yeah, that's
There you go.
my most exciting news I've had in a while.
Very
Yeah,
exciting.
You guys? I know Matt and I spent some time on the computer together chatting and stuff, but that was very disc golfy.
Well, Matt, you said you were going for a round. Did you end up going for a round today?
Yeah.
Yeah, just played a real fun round, and we don't have to talk about how it went. I should practice some putting. You
All
talk
right.
about practice putting? Man, I don't know about you guys, but like from week to week, I'm either fully dialed in or I can't make a thing, and I don't know mechanically why it's different from one week to the next.
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with that up there, the head, but
Maybe. I was nervous. I was just thinking the whole night about coming onto the podcast and having to talk about the round, and that's probably what threw me off.
probably. Yeah. You knew it was going to be asked.
Yep.
The opposite.
But you know what? Jesse and I did play. We played some Diablo 4, the open beta. I don't mean to veer off into nerdland even further than Jesse with his computer science degree, but we played some Diablo 4, which is playing Diablo with somebody on the internet is something I hadn't done in 20 plus years, probably.
Yeah.
So
Last serious time for me, I think I was in grade 4. So it's been a hot minute. I had to ask to borrow the computer. So
Yeah.
And you know what?
Amazing.
We didn't talk about this, but if any of our listeners are planning on playing Diablo 4 when it comes out, maybe we set up a Discord channel and we have a Northern
go.
Flights Diablo group.
Yeah, not a bad
Moderated
idea.
by Andre, who promises he's going to get into it.
At some point, I will probably get into it. Maybe once Juniper's of the age where she's not as needy. So probably never.
Diablo 5?
Yeah.
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 We'll all be living in capsules by then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But if you want to play some Diablo, reach out, let us know.
Yeah. I did get out to the Radium course to do a little bit of work there. I'm really stoked about a hole that I started working on. It's going to take a lot of work. So I bought a new tool.
Yeah, I saw the
And
pictures. It looks awesome.
and it's amazing. I'm thinking maybe I was actually thinking right before the podcast that we should start a new segment called Show and Tell. And it's where we just bring an item that we're really happy about that's somehow related to disc golf. It could be disc, it could be this tool.
You know what? I meant to cut you off for a sec. I meant to bring the new Discmania bags. I got all the new
snap.
bags the day of release kind of thing.
Snap. Yeah.
Could have showed them off to people because I don't think they're in many people's hands yet, especially not in Canada.
All right, Matt's starting us off here with Show and Tell.
I'll start us off. Yeah.
It's a bobblehead of
It's
yourself.
a bobblehead of me in a little chair holding a little tea set, obviously.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
More reasons to pop into YouTube.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. I love that. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about this hole. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like, just picture myself. It's funny. I picture myself throwing it and I'm like, this is really cool. And I just know as soon as I get Jesse or Matt or Casey, someone that's actually good at disc golf, they're just going to break it immediately. So, but this course isn't meant to be a super challenging course. And I think this is probably going to be one of the harder holes. So very excited about
Which
it.
hole is it?
17.
Okay.
I did a lot of work.
Wow. Yeah, it's thick in there. And
Yeah.
actually, our show and tell got cut off by show and tell, got cut off by show and tell. You didn't even say what you got. It's like a Milwaukee.
It's a Milwaukee.
chainsaw.
It's like a pruner. So it's awesome. In fact,
It's a chainsaw pistol.
you guys fill some airtime. I'm gonna go grab it.
It's a chainsaw pistol,
pistol.
in layman terms, yeah. And from someone that's done a lot of coursework, I think tools like this are really, really great because they're not heavy, they're not bulky. You can walk a whole course carrying them, multiple batteries. They last a long time, and you can get a lot of work done. I'm sure Andre will tell us, but that thing probably easily goes through like 3-inch limbs and stuff that you're not just walking by and whacking with an axe or whatever you usually do your pruning around with.
So when you say chainsaw pistol, like I'm
Correct.
imagining a sawzall that's
Here it is.
Oh,
This is
here
it.
it is.
Like you're imagining this. 'Cause
Whoa.
it's a chainsaw pistol. I'm not kidding.
Oh, that is badass.
Yeah. This is like a 2023 horror movie weapon, right? My batteries are fully charged, and I can go get some people with my chainsaw pistol. But
Yeah. So, and it's got a 6-inch. This is a 6-inch blade. Again, if you're not watching YouTube, go check it out.
Take your finger off the trigger, Andre, when you're touching the blade.
there's no battery.
No battery in. And it has a lock. It has a locking mechanism. There's a lot of safety mechanisms. I was gonna say, like, you know, I've been to courses. I've hand sawed a whole bunch of stuff, and it's been really annoying. Taking a Sawzall, that helped a lot. When I got this thing, it was like probably the amount of stuff that I was able to cut down was probably like 6 to 10 times the amount that I normally would have. So amazing. And then this is the battery it
You
came
can clean
with.
up the little stuff too, right? Like it's
That's-
not just
that's-
like big stuff, but the little
so that's
stuff
what
is the hardest stuff to do. And the most painful.
That's what I mostly used this for, was little limbs that were an inch thick, but just super annoying. And it just like made really quick work of it. This battery that it came with lasted probably about 3 hours.
Wow.
That's like cutting and cleaning, but still amazing. And then I have other Milwaukee tools, and this guy here is another battery that it takes. So like, you know, you put that in there, you put that in your disc golf bag.
Yeah, that fits in the side pockets of a tournament style disc golf.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a bit of a game changer. I think it's going to be well worth it in the long run. Maybe haven't used it enough yet to justify it, but very excited. Show and Tell, Milwaukee. Go check it out. This is the M12 version. They have a 8-inch blade with the like regular batteries as well. So go check it out. Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe the best disc golf tool. You can do a bunch of coursework and enforce your courtesy violations and all sorts of stuff with it.
Yeah, or protect your courtesy violations.
Yeah.
Did I do it?
Yeah. Did I foot fault?
Amazing. Cool. All right. Well, there you go. Show and Tell. First official show and tell. I think we're going to make it a regular thing. Maybe not every week, but definitely kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, and I'll try and remember to bring those new bags next week, because
Totally.
the big bag has got some cool stuff going on.
Cool.
I won't bore you too much, but I thought this was so clever. The side pockets are fully open like you'd see on a pound bag kind of thing, so you can put discs and full-size stuff on the sides.
Nice.
But there's a little Velcro strap with a loop so it doesn't come off. And if you do that, it ends up splitting it into two compartments, one that's exactly the diameter of a 32-ounce Hydro Flask or insulated bottle. So your bottle doesn't flop around, and if you want to put discs in it, you just flip the little thing and it flops back, and you fit full-size discs and anything else on the side.
Nice. Stay tuned next week. Show
How
and
did
Tell.
no one else think about that yet?
All right. We said this is going to be a shorter episode, we promise, but we do have some news and notes to get into, including Texas State's Rusty Ratings is starting this weekend. There's been a recently announced Women's Week by the PDGA, which includes a also new initiative, the Canadian Women's Event, which is similar to the WG. So we'll just touch on that a little bit. We have a Canadian Disc Golf Tour update, and of course, we'll have the interview with Scott Stokely. All right, so why don't we just go back to the top here? Rusty Ratings, it's starting this weekend down in Cranbrook. If you haven't signed up yet and you're in the area, definitely worth checking out. I'm not sure the snow will all be gone, but it will be mostly be gone because it's been real nice weather last week. So,
Yeah, I heard that some of the hillsides are pretty icy, so if you're listening, bring good footwear and be prepared for a bit of that.
yeah, we were talking about possibly making hole 3 the side hill out of bounds, just so people don't go down there. But we'll see. Gonna assess the situation on Friday.
Carrie Moss fell down there this week, I want to say, and like couldn't get back up and had to walk all the way through the school field and all the way back up and around.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's like really not good. So
Yeah.
it's a full week of sunshine and it's been pretty warm, so hopefully that works itself out. But
Yeah. And quick
Well, I
shout
hope
out
she
to,
didn't carry too much moss on her way out.
it was under the ice.
but ting. Actually, I think I have a thing for that. Was it this? Nice. Great.
Still learning the soundboard.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, Carrie. I hope you don't listen.
Texas State. I didn't catch any of it. Some very...
Wait, hold up. I got one more for Rusty ratings.
All right, what you got?
Sign up for the Rusty Paddle right now. It's criminally
I know.
under-registered, and it's a debut of a new course and potentially the best course of the whole series. What the heck? Sign up.
I'm a little flabbergasted. I'm hoping that as we get to these tournaments, we can promote it a little bit more. But I guess we'll just see.
I had one thought about this, is that it says Parson, BC on it.
So people are probably
think it's at the
thinking the Wizards. I don't know. I was wondering about that too. It is not at the Wizards.
No Wizards involved.
It is not at the 51 hole, the one with all the dangling bits and the shopping carts and wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
Fun course nearby, not that one. This is a special course designed by one Matt Reardon of DiscGolfPark. It's an amazing course. I'm very excited about it. I can't wait. The other actually big news.
When is that one?
April
Just about the time we're coming down.
April 29th?
Yeah, it's the last one.
29th.
It's the last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last one. Okay.
Yeah. Some other big news and exciting news is that Matt and I are actually going to go down and film Rocket Bear as a little practice. So
dang.
if you are interested in being
to
a
play
camera
good now.
person, hit us up because we do need some practice and we would like to have 3 cameras down there. So, and who knows, maybe you can come out on tour with us for a little camera work.
Little tryout contract at the
Yeah.
Rocket Bear. See if you got the stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So,
It's
hit
in
us up.
Cranbrook, and it's what's the date of that again?
April 17th. It's my birthday
Hey.
and Caitlin's 30th birthday.
Oh, I forgot that you guys were on the
Yeah,
same
we have the same
day.
birthdays. But if I make Caitlin go to a disc golf tournament for her 30th birthday and I don't play well, oh boy, I'm going to hear it for like
It's funny because Matt and I were talking about getting her to be the other camera person.
That's
Asking her.
That's my dedicated caddy. Thank you very much. She might do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
She might also be looking to spend some time away from the course on those days too. So
Yeah, right.
hit her up. You never know. Or hit her up. I'll go home and ask.
Yeah.
And let you know what she says.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, and then of course Rusty Ravens is the April 8th. And then the Rusty Nugget in Golden is the 22nd. So hit those up on Disc Golf Scene. Check them out. Definitely worth signing up, especially if you're in the area. Why not make a tour of it? Surely there's people that aren't working, every single week and are willing to come for a big old tour. Yeah, it's great. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. All right, on to Texas States. I didn't watch any of this. I was hoping to catch some of the post-produced content, and I still might, but I didn't get it. So I'm probably going to leave this one to you guys a little bit here.
And I only watched FPO. Matt, did you watch? You watched FPO too, I bet.
I watched both. I watched a good amount. I didn't see every shot for every round, but I watched a good amount. It was, the FPO was probably more exciting, and it had a really exciting finish. And the course played a little bit better, I think, and it was a little bit more visually interesting too. But it was, I liked it. I don't even remember the name of the course they played last year at Texas State's, but I really liked the venue that they had this year.
I can't remember the last year's either, but I thought I liked the course last year if I was to play it better. This was open enough that it kind of worked really well for cameras and people, I think. But on the FPO side, anyway, it seemed like there was this stretch of holes. They were between 540 and 580 feet, almost back to back, where it was like the same thing over and over. And you could tell on the Central Coast coverage, like Holland Hanley was kind of saying like, yeah, it's not the best thing ever. That part wasn't so interesting for me. The water holes, the short, tight holes where they're getting crafty was a lot of fun. And then, Cyananda winning was huge. I know you tried not to say it, but I am saying it because she's about the closest connected player to our disc golf scene here that's doing big things on the FPO side. She's just over the line in Washington State. I know that a couple tournament directors down there that are doing fundraisers for her to try and get stuff up, gets money together for her tour and everything. It's really close to home, and so it's really cool.
She's really young too, isn't she? She just graduated like a year or two ago from high school.
28, I thought.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
You can do some Googling, and we can hear some more.
Quickly do some Googling.
She won Am Masters in 2016, which is now 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago.
Well, there you go.
And I think she was around 18 at the time. So I bet she's in her mid-20s, early to mid-20s would be my guess.
I guess it won't say on this, fam.
Yeah, I could have swore she's, like, I heard on the coverage that she's 28, I thought.
I don't think so. I don't think she's quite that old.
Might have been.
But she's been around and just hasn't been able to... there just hasn't been that much money in FPO disc golf for the last 7 years. Like we're only getting to the point now where we can have a relatively extended field that can afford to live on the road and golf full time.
Yeah,
and especially if your name's not Page and your last name's not Allen, there weren't too many other spots for people to make a living,
making a real living. Yeah. No, absolutely.
So, this is great.
Oh.
Yeah, and she's one of those people that you heard some rumblings before the season even started that she's kind of coming up. She showed up for what was it, the women's major last year, the women's championship.
Either Throw Pink or U.S. Women's. I can't remember.
She did well at one of them. Yeah, and I know that Johnny from Skip Ace Fantasy, she was on one of his sort of sleeper picks. So,
and my sleeper pick in the last podcast, and happened to be a free agent.
There you go.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Podcast bump still in effect.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean that's awesome to see her win. I think the biggest thing is that there's been a different winner every single tournament.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Great year for watching disc golf, especially on the FPO side.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. You're not so far anyway. Kristen doesn't have every tournament locked up by 5 strokes, and the excitement's still there. I know I had a pretty decent lead by the end of it. I think 3 or 4 strokes probably.
Yeah.
But it was a battle even for second, and that lead card, if I remember right, Cy was 19 down, and the rest of the card was 16 down, all tied up with 4 holes to play. And they were clear of 5th place by 6 strokes. So that card really they all pushed each other and really put on a great show.
Cool. We did have
it was awesome.
We did have one Canadian in the field, and unfortunately she had a pretty rough first round. Couldn't ever recover from it. And but yeah, Brianna Ainsley unfortunately didn't do so well, finishing in last place. But kudos for her for going down and competing. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And finishing the tournament. It's so easy to get that pull to DNF because they're not playing well and say you've got a stiff neck or whatever, and she troopered it out, had some fun, played some disc golf. I love that.
Totally. All right, and then on the MPO side, we had Calvin Heimberg.
Yeah, player of the year so far, I think.
Yeah, unquestionably. He's got, the thing that sticks out to me is he's got way more confidence and I think a little bit more distance in his forehand this year.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he's kind of the same Calvin Heimberg that we've seen, and maybe he's just learning to clutch it out. He's learning to finish tournaments, which is the thing you got to learn. You got to learn how to lose before you can learn how to win. And so he's got that, but he's also added a pretty legitimate forehand to his game, which was kind of, I would say, the only weak spot of his game.
Yeah, definitely not someone you think of when you start thinking of sidearm throwers. And he did have a couple of sidearm highlights. I'll say there's a 350 forehand to 5 feet on one of these holes. I saw the clip. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really impressive. And I don't think you need a huge booming distance forehand to be competitive at the highest level. But I think at least 300 and in, that's a different shape and a more controllable ground play than a backhand turnover. And having that is a big tool. Even for a guy with
and turning he could backhand those holes and have a 20 or 30 foot putt, or you could forehand it and put it 5 to 10. and that's just you're just upping your scoring average. I guess lowering your scoring. You know what I mean? Getting better, doing more good,
doing more good.
So yeah. So it's really like the only weakness is between his ears, and if he's got that locked down, like if he knows how to close out a tournament and he can, handle the stress and the emotions around, being in a tight race at the top of the leader card, man, oh man.
Yeah, watch out. I guess the big question mark over that is when Rick gets healthy and comes back, what happens, right?
Well, I think we'll see the majors. That'll be the interesting part. We know that Calvin and Gannon and Ricky and Paul and Eagle, I would say that's the top 5 in MPO right now, right? Like unquestionably. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of everybody else to me. I can't think of anybody else. I don't think I would even put Simon in the top 5.
No, not at the moment anyway. Probably still learning his bag a little bit. Had some good finishes. There's lots of guys that can do it, but I think the 5 you listed off are the ones that do it presently.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of am looking forward to that first major to see, assuming they all registered, to see, when it comes down to it in a big event, when the money's all on the table and all 5 of them are playing and hopefully healthy, where it all shakes down.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, maybe because he hasn't played a lot, I don't know. It feels like it could be a threatening year for Drew Gibson as well. He only played a few events, but he was pretty aggressive in all of them. In the ones where he had bad rounds that kept him out of the top 5, he was making comebacks from like 35th place to 6th or whatever it ended up being there, throwing 1070s and stuff like that. So
yeah, if you could put it all together.
You'll notice though, of all of the 5 people that we mentioned, they all have forehands, and Drew Gibson does not really have a forehand.
Again, but I agree. The forehand's a tool. I'd probably be lying if I didn't think Drew was in like the top 3 of backhand throwing skill in the world.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. So again, it'd be nice if he had it. Maybe he's working on it. No, I have actually seen a Drew forehand, and it's not good. I'm just going to stop talking.
Yeah. All right. We can move on here. We will get back into some Canadian news. Well, actually, this is kind of regular PDGA news leading into some Canadian news. The PDGA has announced the inaugural PDGA Women's Disc Golf Week, which will be taking place May 13th to 21st of this year. A great initiative, especially given that they've had the Women's Global event. I believe it's every other year, and this is going to be every single year. So I think it's just one of those weeks that will encourage women to come out to the disc golf course, play in tournaments, just play casual rounds. I think it's a very great initiative.
Absolutely. I think having like I don't overly like having scheduled days for things or weeks for things, whether it's this history month or this whatever week. But I do think when you're trying to grow something like women's disc golf, if someone in Calgary is posting about this, someone in Cranbrook's posting about this, someone in Kamloops is posting about this, just like the collective, marketing of it will get the visibility up a lot more than if it was scattered all around the year. So I really, really like what they're doing because I thought having an off year with WGE was probably bad. It was going to kill a bunch of momentum that had been building through the pandemic and the boom in players. And now I think this is a really good solve for that.
Yeah, and I'll just read off this little bit here to summarize. On the PDGA website, it says the PDGA Women's Disc Golf Week was set up to work as a bridge between women's global events year and a way to encourage organizers to keep their WGE events going during the off years. Women's Disc Golf Week is also designed to celebrate women and girls in disc golf and to encourage as many women and girls to participate in the sport as they can. And this is kind of what it means. They call it How We're Celebrating. Non-member fees are going to be waived for participants in the gender-based divisions at C-tier level events for that week, and 20% off membership for women and girls who join for the first time for the entire month of May. There's going to be mystery boxes of goodies sent to women and girls who participate in a PDGA sanctioned event in the month of May with the current PDGA membership. Winners will be determined by drawing after June's ratings update. And then recognizing women and girls that you nominate during the week of Women's Disc Golf Week. I actually have a sneaky suspicion because I've heard rumblings about Canada trying to do something during the off years, and I believe that they approached PDGA about it. So I'd be curious to know if this was kind of like PDGA had this women's committee, this newly formed Canadian Women's Committee, come up to them, and then PDGA was like, that's such a good idea, we should build on this. So, that's I don't know, maybe Canadians started this whole thing.
Roots. Because the WG is a Throw Pink initiative.
I think it's just a PDGA,
or a PDGA
initiative.
initiative.
Yeah, I think it's just a PDGA initiative.
Interesting.
Yeah. I could be wrong.
Why did they decide every 2 years? Did they figure there's not enough women disc golfers to play once a year? How did that decision... Was it just to make it feel extra special? They only have it every 2 years? I don't understand. Why couldn't you have a WGE every year?
That's
Jesse?
a good question.
I'd have to give you some made up story, like most of my thoughts are.
When I heard that the first time, I was like, they have it every 2 years.
Yeah.
I took part in a women's global event, and it was awesome. And then it was like, what happened to the women's global event?
It is very strange to have that, but it might be something to do with the committees and the logistics. I don't know what they get for turnover in the organization for the
Yeah.
at
PDGA
the
Women's
high
Committee.
level.
Yeah.
And if it takes another extra year of organizing to get funding and get all this other stuff together, I really don't know.
Yeah.
But I am so proud of Canadians, especially the Canadian women. They're getting involved in organizing events like the Crush, like the one that you're talking about, Andre. Do we have a name? Do we have a? I can't remember.
Oh, the Canadian Women's event is the Canadian Women's event, CWE.
Oh, that's a good name.
They do have a Instagram page. I'm really zoomed in. It's Canadian_women's_event. You can find that on Instagram. They have some information up on there. This Canadian event is May and June for 2023, and I'm assuming that's just to try to encompass as many of these tournaments as they can. Obviously, I'm sure they are encouraged to have their events during this week or during the month of May to be a part of this more global event. So, but yeah, very interesting. I know that there's some events going on in Edmonton, Calgary, and Cranbrook. Those are the local ones that I've heard of. I do believe Raptors Knoll has, I think they're calling it the Women's Open. I think it might just be a C tier for this year, but I'm assuming that one's just going to get bigger and bigger because it is Raptors Knoll. It's going to draw a big crowd. The one that Christie's putting on is I kind of got wrangled into being an assistant TD for that one. It's the Idlewild Endeavor, which she has run in the past, and that's her usual women's global event. And she's been wanting to run this every single year. So, and they have a budding women's showing down there. So
Absolutely.
yeah, very cool initiative. Very happy to have this be a part of the disc golf world.
Yeah, what a good
Love
course for an intro tournament too. I don't like the idea of using Idlewild for bigger tournaments, but if it's a get out, have fun, new people event, what a great spot. The longest hole is 220 feet.
Yeah.
You're not getting lost. You're not losing discs. You're still having laughs. You can see everything.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really awesome.
Totally. All right. And in some other Canadian news, big news out of the Canadian Disc Golf Tour, we have a tournament announcement.
Let me get it ready. Okay. Wait.
All
I
right.
think I'm ready. Right.
Disc Golf Manitoba will be the fourth stop on the tour, July 15th to 16th. It's a B tier event. Registration opens April 21st. Woo!
Manitoba Provincials. The Provincial
Disc golf
Championship of Manitoba.
Manitoba Provincials. That's right.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, you can
La
go check that out.
Barriere Park. Sorry, I don't know. It's to make noise. La Barriere Park. It's going to be a blast.
Is that around Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know my Manitoba that well. I know like 3 cities in the entire province, so that might be one. I've never been. Have you guys been to Manitoba? Because I sure have not been to Manitoba.
I've been through Manitoba.
Drove through Manitoba? Yeah, not even that for me.
I
I
stopped in
spent some
Winnipeg.
time in Winnipeg. It's like Edmonton. It felt very similar to Edmonton. I felt like kind of at home there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've never gone, and this might just be the excuse I need to go.
Might be. Probably is.
Get in the Park Pro van and start driving.
Yeah, there you go.
Heck yeah. Bring a camera operator with you.
Yeah.
Pay for gas.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. Yeah, we're very excited about this one. Obviously, being a Canadian national tour, we wanted to include as many provinces as we could. So we kind of circled Manitoba on there and looked for the biggest tournament we could find. And this is it. This is the one. We're very excited about it.
I'll start Google Maps and how long it takes to get there right now.
Yeah. All right. Go check that out on Disc Golf Scene. And once again, registration opens April 21st. I believe if you're a part of the Disc Golf Manitoba club, then I think you have early registration as well. So all the more reason to sign up for the club.
Protect you from all those guys from Saskatchewan trying to take your spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a 16.5-hour drive.
Yeah, not
Could
terrible.
hitchhike that in like 4 days.
All right, and then shortly after we recorded, I believe the last podcast, Jesse shared some news that Paul and Dylan Cease purchased a course, the location of a very, very popular course, the location of a tournament, Throw Down the Mountain, which is really well attended every single year. It's a highlight for most pros on tour. So
absolutely, there's people skipping Silver Series events to go to Throw Down the Mountain, which says something. And from what I've heard from people down there, that's like a top 10 level course in the U.S. But the way it works with the landowner, it's only open for play like a month out of the year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Paul and Dylan bought it. And now their goal is that by midsummer, they'll have the place fully operational and open year-round for play.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a real estate developer was looking at buying the piece of land. Paul got wind of it, and they knew they had to stop it, so they got their nose in there and, secured the course for the foreseeable future. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and Dylan Cease, of course, he purchased some more land because he has his own course prior to this one that he was building. I think it was called Cactus Rock. I'm not sure where it is, where it's located, but I've heard
Alabama, I think.
Alabama, Arkansas, something like that.
Alabama.
Yeah.
That's a song.
Yeah, it is.
Edward Sharpe and Magnetic Zeros.
Yeah, also covered by other people, I think. Multiple people.
Yes.
Very cool though, because it shows that Dylan Cease. If you don't know who Dylan Cease is, he's a pitcher for the White Sox, I believe, and that is baseball, a totally different sport. But there's lots of money in it, and he's very excited and very enthusiastic about disc golf.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what we need. This is like a good bridge. This is a professional player that sees the potential of the sport and wants to elevate the courses and tournaments. So,
yeah, if
You
you're
know
a
what this
Sox
is?
pitcher, you
This
got the
is-
budget for it.
Yeah, this is, and he's a good one too. This is Ryan Reynolds buying the Ottawa Senators because and saying that he needs a sugar daddy to make it happen. Ryan Reynolds, very rich guy by every metric you could imagine, but he needs somebody with like real deep pockets. So
yes.
Paul Macbeth is. It's hard not to like the guy, even though like I cheer for the underdog all the time, and you get sick of people that win everything all the time. But it's kind of hard not to like and respect what Paul Macbeth has done for the game. It's just,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Incredible.
it's pretty incredible. He's doing all the things that you would want the sports top professional to do.
Yeah, between the foundation and little things. I don't know what the price tag on that piece of property was, but things like this, the foundation, the time he spends with the players and stuff. It's it's really great to see.
Sort of. You touched on a little bit more Canadian news outside of disc golf. I heard Ryan Reynolds sold Mint Mobile, so he might be putting a bid in for Ottawa Senators. So
yeah, it was a 1.3 billion,
something like that. So
I didn't even know this thing existed until he sold it.
I didn't know either. Crazy. Cool. All right. Do we have any other news to talk about?
Guys, we get to talk to Scott Stokely. This is a guy that competed with Ken Climo and Barry Schultz at the peaks of their game. He's one of the icons of the sport. If you haven't seen the big money cash skins that he was involved in, it is one of the, handful of absolute must-watch post-produced events of disc golf.
Yeah, Scott's
watch that, pause the podcast and watch that.
I will say another one would be the Simon Lizotte vlog where they play Maple Hill together. Is a good one if you don't know Stokely.
Yeah. He
throws hole 8, which is the one across the water, very famous. Sidearm under his leg in that video. Yeah. He does like a dad backyard frisbee trick.
Big legs. He's like, 6'7" probably? He's a tall guy.
Yeah. And I think he throws what is that hole? 350? 350 under the leg? I don't think I get 350 crazy. On a full rip on a sidearm.
Yeah.
That's insane. But the only reason why we can talk to people like Scott Stokely and Legend of the Sport and Jesse Tamalti as well is because of the Patreon community and because of Disc Golf Park. This is the whole reason why we get to do stuff like this. So thank you. This is, our way of saying thank you to the people that make this podcast possible.
Yeah. Speaking of Disc Golf Park is a unique disc golf course concept developed in Finland in 2005. It is based on the idea of building sports facilities in an environmentally friendly way. Disc Golf Park provides great experience. You're staring at me. Doesn't read this. It's nerve-wracking.
I'm staring at you?
Yeah. Dude, I'm pulling one of these.
Well, okay, I'll sit here like this the whole time.
Yeah, look at me
stare
in the
at
screen.
myself.
Disc Golf Park provides great experiences for players of all skill levels from beginners to professionals. Our main ideology is to introduce disc golf to new audiences. There are several options to suit any kind of course, and all official Disc Golf Parks include professional and safe course design, Disc Golf Park Pro targets, tee pads and tee signs, and an info board to welcome players to your course. The Disc Golf Park World concept consists of multiple courses designed for different types of players. Multi-golf is a new, fun activity for the whole family. In multi-golf, 3 forms of golf are played: foot golf, disc golf, and park-style pitch and putt. School Disc Golf Park offers students a new and exciting form of exercise for the physical education classes. A course suitable for schools can be designed even in a small area, for instance, a schoolyard. Furthermore, the cost of school disc golf park are lower than those of regular disc golf parks. We also offer private and group lessons or clinics. For more information, check out the website at discgolfpark.com and request a quote today. I only did that so that our listeners and our viewers know that is an ad read off the top of my head.
Crisp and refreshing. Just like a disc hitting the chains on your new Disc Golf Park basket.
There you go. Hashtag not a sponsor. Compliments sparkling soda water.
I just had to mess with you more because, yeah.
All right. Without further ado, Scott Stokely, everyone.
Scott Stokely! Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the Northern Flights podcast. We have a very special guest with us today, all the way from overseas. You know him, you love him. We have Scott Stokely joining us today. Thank you for joining us, Scott. How are you doing today?
I appreciate that, but it distinctly said in my contract that you would use the words striking and handsome in the introduction. So, hate to.
I thought we were doing that in the outro. That's.
Oh, you know what? That's right. I looked it over. You're correct. I'm 53 years old. I would settle for the word handsome. Like, you can say it on Christmas, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Well, you look great. You look better than ever, and you've got more than 10 years on me, and I only hope to have held up as well. 10 years from now. So,
where are you at? Where are you at right now?
I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, because why not? We are 3 months into our world tour for the rest of our life tour. That's the official name.
Cool. That sounds awesome.
So I think we're in our 8th country in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a hospital room right now. I have 4 surgeries scheduled over several weeks in Bangkok, and I'm not dying. I mean, other than in the sense that we all are technically our whole lives, but I'm not. Nothing's pressing. But I'm spending about $16,000 on what would cost me $80,000 in the U.S. To do these surgeries. So it's pretty cool. So the most recent one is I had a hole drilled in the side of my face and had a bone graft put in my sinus cavity to put in dental implants so I can have teeth like a not old person 8 months from now. So if I don't smile, it's not because you weren't hilarious. It's because it hurts.
Gotcha. Sounds good. I see a smile there, so can't wait till we can see all those pearly whites.
I know I can't. Well, actually, I'm settling for pearly beige. There's nothing, pearly whites on a 53-year-old looks so out of place.
Bet.
But pearly, kind of, like it was dipped in motor oil and wiped off with a towel, but not a clean towel, kind of like an old towel in the garage. Like I'll settle for pearly good, but it's better than this. The missing teeth here just doesn't look good at all. So
yeah,
I'm excited to have them. Plus, it's not effective chewing gums.
Was this a planned sort of stop, or was this like sort of spontaneous off the cuff?
No, I had a spontaneous tooth infection. That was really bad, but that was just a root canal, which seemed like a big deal until I compared it to all the other stuff. But other than that, no, it was planned. It's just healthcare in the U.S. leaves a little bit to be desired, especially as far as cost goes. I'm not saying the care or the people aren't good, but the thing about it is a lot of countries, like especially in Southeast Asia, when you get into the cities, is every bit as modern and clean and sanitary, and they got the same exact protocols, maybe even stricter than anywhere else in the U.S. or Europe. So there's no trading down in healthcare here at the highest end. It's just it costs about a quarter of the price. So I would say of the people, like honestly, I'm not exaggerating, of all the people that came to compete in Thailand and Cambodia, I would say maybe a third to half of them had like dental work done, because you can go get like a root canal for like $100 instead of like $3,000. It's more than 4 times as much.
Well, there you go.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, go for the disc golf and stay for the dental work.
A lot of people do it. It's just look up like medical tourism. It's a big thing, and it's a real thing. And again, a lot of the doctors they go to school in the U.S. They do their residency in the U.S. or Europe. I mean, there is no trade off on the care you get. You just price it. It's really the way to go.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Well, we should probably talk a little bit about disc golf, as much as we enjoy talking about medical stuff. Why don't we just start off with most recently? How was your tournaments in Thailand? I heard you did pretty good.
That's not the most recent. Actually, I played a tournament in Cambodia after Thailand. It's been great. I've played 4 tournaments in Asia. I played in Johor, Malaysia, Koh Samui, Thailand, Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's already starting to blur. And then Siem Reap, Cambodia. It's going fantastic. The disc golf out here it's new. It's exciting because it's new. It kind of has this energy that you get from the way the sport was back in the 80s, where like knows what you're doing. The neighbors don't understand it, but the people that do it are passionate about it, and there's this shared camaraderie of like no one knows what the hell we're doing but us. But then you add in this element, especially like in Johor, Malaysia, and then in Siem Reap, Cambodia, where the local players have taken it on. There's local players certainly in Thailand, but it's a lot higher percentage of expats or people living from overseas exposed to disc golf came over to Thailand to vacation or live. But in Cambodia, the course is out in the countryside, and it's all these kids. It's like it's in a village outside of town, and then in Johor, Eric Grover put 9 courses in. There's 9 courses in Malaysia
That's
that
crazy.
he put in, and it's entirely made up of Malaysians that play. 90 something percent. And that is a whole different thing because it is completely brand new to them. Most of them hadn't even heard of it until the course went on the ground. Never heard of it, never seen it, nothing. And so for them to take on this new sport, it's very, very exciting. It's really neat.
Very cool.
That's a really nice segue. You're right now in Southeast Asia playing disc golf and getting some healthcare procedures done. And it wasn't, more than about a decade ago that you were done playing disc golf, partly for health reasons, right? You had run into some back issues and some arm issues, and I imagine that this present version of Scott Stokely would have been kind of unimaginable to Scott Stokely from back then, right?
Yeah, and that's why I cut out a little bit. You said I ran into what? Some
health. You had some health
stuff.
issues about a decade ago. Yeah, you had some back problems and some arm problems, right?
Oh no, my problems from 10 years ago were the drugs you take to get rid of the back problem pain. I had, when I quit playing the sport in 2000, 2001-ish, I was having problems with my back, but that's not why I quit. I quit because my daughter was born. Things were hurting, the writing was on the wall, like there were things that were causing problems, but I didn't quit because of that. I quit because I wanted to raise my daughter and I didn't want to be a part-time player. But then after 13 years away from the sport, most of those years, like pretty wildly successfully running internet companies that I created and doing really well, things started going badly. And then a very short period, but very intense period of drug abuse, and had some major problems with depression. And then I came back to the sport as a way of, as a way of finding myself again. And yeah, I would say as far as me being unrecognizable to the person I was, it's yes and no. I mean, I am still the same person. I was never a bad person, even when I was doing the drugs, even when I wasn't doing things I wasn't proud of. I'm still the guy I am. But I was certainly living a life that was radically different than now. And yeah, I mean, going from like abject poverty, self-imposed abject poverty. I was in America. There was no excuse for being in the position I was in. I had every opportunity available to me. But going from that situation to, holy cow, I can go travel to Asia and pay for surgeries and travel. It's like, it is surreal. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's like I've kind of become convinced that I died and then now I'm living in my simulation. I'm only like mostly joking about that. I've had this run of incredibly good luck, and I don't mean winning tournaments. I mean, I've had this really nice run at life after having such a bad period, and things keep going so well that I'm like, are you sure this is real, or this like someone's programming this for sure? Let me give you one example. Okay, this is God's honest truth. I never lie. Like I'm militant about being honest. I am not making this one bit. I went to one of this was in where was it? Was it the when the eggs when they ran out of bacon? That was at the end of last year, right? Oh yeah. So at the end of last year. Okay, tell me this is not a simulation. At the end of last year, I'm in a hotel. I go downstairs to get breakfast, and they ran out of their breakfast meat. Okay, I'm not a Karen. It's not a big deal. I just came back with a plate of eggs. I'm not eating bread because of the carbs. So I come back with a plate of eggs, and I say to my girlfriend, "Hey, I got a huge plate full of eggs, but I didn't get any meat because they ran out." And she says, and I quote, "Oh, don't worry, I have bacon in my purse."
Did you
Where
indulge?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Apparently, she was at the grocery store the night before. She found a bunch of pre-cooked bacon called snack bacon, because everyone likes bacon, and she didn't want to pay the 10 cents extra for the shopping bag, so she shoved it in her purse. Anyways, I'm out of bacon. My girlfriend has bacon in her purse. No woman has ever had bacon just handy in her man's purse before. I'm in a freaking simulation. That doesn't happen. Have you ever heard of purse? Yeah.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, find yourself a partner that has bacon on their body at all times. That's the secret to life.
The only explanation is somebody programmed purse bacon into my simulation. All right, sorry. Off related, but
No, that's all right.
Yes, my life was radically different. There was no purse bacon 10 years ago.
Yeah. We do have a lot of new disc golfers who are listeners, and I just think that a lot of them probably don't know you all that well. So I want to go way, way back. Just way back. I didn't need to do 2 ways there. When and how did you start playing disc golf? And do you remember like the story of when you first discovered it?
I remember it very well, and I'm going to plug my book because my autobiography, Scott Stokely Growing Up Disc Golf, is on Amazon and Audible. And by the way, the nurse is about to come through the curtain like a rock star. So hold on 1 second. You can come in. Oh, come on in. Sorry, I wasn't kidding. I'm in a hospital right now. They brought food. Thank you so much. I'll see if she'll wave. Thank you. Oh, will you wave? Can you wave to the all my millions of fans? Hi. All right.
Awesome.
But we can leave.
Was there bacon on that plate?
No, but I had bacon this morning.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so Western food in Asia. Well, first off, I don't eat Western food out here because, like, why are you in Asia? I'm not like trying to find a Chili's or something. Like, I'm here to eat like street food. Like, but every once in a while, you kind of get stuck at a situation where you have to eat Western food, and it doesn't taste like the food we make. It's actually pretty horrific. Like the local food's amazing, but if they try to make you bacon and eggs, it's kind of They brought me a plate of spaghetti last night because it's probably supposed to, like they thought I'm a white dude. I would want spaghetti or something like that, and it was. I'm not sure what it was. Here's what it was like. If you took someone like from Southeast Asia who like owned a restaurant, and then they came to the U.S. and you gave them top ramen, and said, "Oh, it's Asian food." That's basically what they gave.
Awesome.
Spaghetti version. All right, so no, my book, Growing Up Disc Golf, is on Audible and Amazon. I wrote my autobiography, but it's the first 25-year history of disc golf at the same time because I was kind of there for it. So basically, the short of it is that I was 7 years old, and my dad passed away. And my mom would take me to all the local parks in the area. And every park had something different to do. Whatever park I went to, it's like, oh, that's the one with the big swing set or whatever. And one of the parks had a Frisbee golf course. And it wasn't unusual because another park had a giant merry-go-round. Like it was just, that's the park's game that park had. Well, it turns out that it was the world's first Frisbee golf course. And at the time, it was the only one in the entire world. So I accidentally started at ground zero of our sport. The course was about 7 miles from my house, though. So I might go there every month or 2 or 3. I wasn't a regular player, but when I was 11 years old, I moved right down the street. And in fact, there was no kid. Remember back when you used to know the kids in the neighborhood when we were younger? There was no kid that lived between me and the course. So of every kid on planet Earth, I lived closer to the world's first Frisbee golf course than the other billion children in the world. And I came from a blue collar neighborhood, but I moved to a very rich, affluent neighborhood where I absolutely did not fit in. Like, we weren't poor by any stretch. We were doing quite well, but in a rich neighborhood, we were the poorest people in our neighborhood. Which, in a rich neighborhood, you might as well have leprosy. I mean, like, I was an outcast. So what I found was the local park was filled with all the blue collar folks that were like the ones I grew up with. You know, the old hippies, blue collar, working class people. And in hindsight, I realized that since my dad had passed away, these were the grown men that I found in my life. These are my father figures. I didn't realize this until I wrote the book that was the case, but it absolutely was the case. So that's how I found it, and I pretty much played every day from that day forward until I was 15 years old, and then I dropped out of school, and then I could actually play all day, every day, and that's kind of how it started.
Cool. Do you think there's...
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Good. Is there? Do you think there's one moment that over the years that sticks out to you as a defining moment for your career?
The defining moment for my career. I mean, there's certain, like, and this is when I wrote my book. I actually kind of had to explore these ideas because you know, when you write your memoir, you have to share these, like, I don't know, it's the word watershed moments. I'm not sure that's the right term, but, you know, big moments. When I had been playing every day, I don't know how long it was. It might have just been months, but I was standing on hole 6 of the course, and I was playing like I did every single day, but I was playing with a Frisbee I bought at the store. Not long before then, this is like 1981, not long before then, there were no such things as discs made specifically for Frisbee golf. We called it back then. Mm-hmm. So Whammo had not yet produced their heavy Midnight Flyer golf discs, which were just store-bought Frisbees, but they put phosphorus in them to make them heavier, call them golf discs or golf Frisbees. Those had just come out, but I wasn't playing with them yet. And a man by the name of Bruce Sisson, who was the president of the Oak Grove Gophers, the local disc golf club, Frisbee golf club back then, approached me and said, "Hey, I see you playing every day. You're really good. Come over here and meet some of the club members." And he introduced me to the club, or some of the club members. He gave me some golf Frisbees. And that was like the moment when I was playing real Frisbee golf. Like, I was just playing with toys in the park before then. But now I had, like, real golf Frisbees. And that moment that, like, that's still, like, I remember where I was when it happened. But I got brought into the club. Like, if those are the moments, like, if that didn't happen, I'm pretty sure I would have kept playing. But maybe my mom takes me to a karate class and that becomes my thing. Like, who knows? Mm-hmm. But that was where I was like, now I'm part of the club. Now I found my people. So had that not happened, who knows? But that was probably the single most important moment in my Frisbee career. If I had to pick one, it was probably that moment, because that set me on a course.
Cool. I'm curious. One of the things I'd love to know is, there's a lot of internet debates about, you know, great players in all kinds of sports over different generations. And it's usually impossible to compare the great players from one generation to the great players from another generation, because games evolve and change so much. You're one of the lucky few people that was able to play at the highest competitive level against multiple generations of the game's greatest players. So I'd love to know how, in your mind, you compare the greats of, you know, let's say the early 90s, the Ken Climos and the Barry Schultzes and yourself, against the greats of today's generation, and how do they slot in your mind in terms of, you know, greatness? Is it possible to compare the two generations?
Well, it's easy to compare them, like, because we're doing it right now. I mean, comparing just means attempting to, you know, look for similarities and differences, right? So comparing is no problem. And it's not just that generation. I mean, if we're going to talk about the greats of generations, we got to go back, because there were the Victor Malafrontes and the Ken Westerfields and the Mark Horns, Joe Orsinos, John Kirklands from the very early days, Snapper Pearson, Tom Monroe's. Um, it's very important to me. I was there for all of it. I might have been very young for some of it, but definitely the sport didn't begin in the 90s. There was a player by the name of Sam Ferens who won the World Championships at 16 years old in 1984, who was so good and so far ahead of his time. It's important they get recognized, but the sport evolves and people get better. And the players are better today. Absolutely. You cannot question this. Like anyone who suggests that the players today aren't better than the players of the old days is insulting our sport, because our sport has evolved as it should have. I mean, when you look at a modern player versus a player of 10, 20, 30 years ago, just keep going further back in time, we have a sport today that, number one, it comes from a far larger pool of players. I mean, there's 20 times as many players out there, or 40 times as many, but probably 80 times as many kids, because no one let their kids play back in the old days because of the types of people that played Frisbee golf. The best people in the world I know, but they were a little counterculture-ish, let's say. So you have, let's say, 20 to 40 times larger of a pool of players to choose from. You're going to get 20 to 40 times as many good players. You also have players who are watching disc golf on the internet. They're learning disc golf from YouTube. There's professional teaching out there. People like me, people like Barsby and Sexton and Wiggins and Gerthy came to my seminar, my clinics as kids, right? For example. You also have, and this is a big one, you have far more real athletes playing our sport. Like there were athletes that played back in the old days, for sure, but it was largely people that didn't fit anywhere else, and to a large extent, you had a lot of people that did not want to have anything to do with the jock culture. Now we have players who are looking at their late teens, going, "Wow, AAA baseball sounds like fun, but the Pro Tour sounds better." Like we weren't getting those players before, so the players are absolutely better today. Of course they are. By the way, they also all have sidearms now. They all have more variety. They're in better shape. They're better fitness. I mean, everything about it. So you can compare players, but you have to. It's kind of like when you look at how much money did Gone with the Wind gross compared to Star Wars. Like you have to adjust for inflation, and you have to look at the players back 20 years ago, like in my era, the 90s, and those players were playing an entirely different game against a far smaller group of people. And the games, like outside of me, were developed for the type of golf that was played back then. For all intents and purposes, the 90s was about approaching and putting, period.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is that I, as someone who basically had modern player type of skills, because I could actually throw far. I feel like 50 to 100 feet farther than every other player on the tour. And that's not an exaggeration in the 90s. There were distance players that matched me, but as far as the competitive disc golfers, 100 feet farther. I was a modern player in the old game. And I could reach virtually every hole on every disc golf course with a mid-range disc. Okay, those are approach shots. If a modern player can reach a hole or reach the basket with a rock or a buzz, it's an approach shot. So the players back in the old days were throwing approaches and then making putts. It wasn't a complete game. So you're not even at a full skill set on display. You're looking at who is the best short game, who is the best approach and putter. And so the players back then were phenomenal at approaching and putting. How it translates to the modern game, it would be very difficult. A player from the old days in the modern era, who threw 400 feet, couldn't compete.
Mm-hmm.
But there were holes over 400 feet back then, so they didn't even try to develop that skill. So could they have developed that skill? I don't know. Yeah. So it is tough. So the the basic take is there's no question players today are better, period.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier on, you mentioned clinics.
Long answer.
You've taught a lot of clinics, and you're in the process of teaching a lot of clinics, I'm assuming, on your tour. How does the evolution of the game translate to the way that you teach? Do you have to change your teaching style over the years, or is it something that you've evolved as the game has evolved and you've been able to incorporate that into your clinics? Or
100%. Yeah, no, I don't teach differently because the game's changed, because the game itself hasn't changed. You just weren't required to throw certain shots back in the old days. You weren't required to throw drives. But the game itself hasn't changed, but my teaching ability has. The thing about teaching is it's no different than any other skill, but it's an independent skill from playing. So when a person has been teaching, let's say someone's been teaching disc golf full time for several years, and you would call them a highly experienced disc golf teacher. Well, how would you compare someone playing disc golf for 2 years versus someone who's been playing disc golf for 20? And someone who's good, who's been playing for 20 years, they're playing two different games. I mean, you're just not a master at 2 years.
Yeah.
The way you are at 20. But he is. Like, you're a prodigy if you're top 100 in the world after 4 years. So, teaching after just a couple of years, you're only going to get so good because that's just the way it works. So what's evolved for me is just an evolution of, like, I've taught more disc golf than anyone in the world. I have an online class at scottstokely.net where I have online classes that I teach. I have clinics all over the country. I got coaches teaching my method in seminars all over the country. And it's a life's work. I mean, I've mastered teaching. But I say that humbly because I can acknowledge that I had to become good, and I had to learn how to be a good teacher for many, many years. Mm-hmm. I was belt for many years. Now, when there was no blue belts at teaching, I was the best teacher in the world because there weren't any teaching blue belts. Doesn't mean I wasn't a blue belt. It means I was the best people out there. So the teaching method has evolved to a point where when I watch people teach now, I see all the problems in how it's being taught. And I'm like, that doesn't work. But I don't look down on the person teaching it, because often they're doing exactly what I would have done when I had been teaching for 2 years. And everybody who's been teaching for 20 years has to, at some point, have taught for 2, 4, 8, 10, 12 years. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, my teaching has completely evolved, but it hasn't changed because of the game. I've just refined it. I know how to communicate ideas. When I say to do this, I've learned that doesn't work. I've learned the only way to get someone that does thing A to do thing B correctly isn't to show them to do thing B. It's to go over here and teach them skill F. They have to master skill F, because that's the only way they're going to fix G, because thing G is what was screwing up thing A to begin with. Well, that only comes with time and experience. But now I feel very confident. I'm still learning, but if I don't get any better at teaching, I'm not satisfied. I want to always get better, but I feel very confident today.
Good. And
I think it's one of the things that I've noticed, that I've seen some of your teaching, is that not all professional athletes are professional communicators. And the thing that sort of sticks out most to me with you compared to other professionals that are doing some instruction is that you've really figured out a way to communicate with people on a really understandable and basic and direct level. Is that something that you had to learn, or is that something that you feel like you sort of had a skill when you were younger?
No, that is a learned skill like anything else. By the way, thank you. I appreciate that. It's not just communicating, because you could communicate an idea and you can communicate it perfectly clear. But as a teacher, it does not matter how clearly and flawlessly you communicate an idea. If the student tries their best to do what you're teaching them and is unable to do it, that is 100% on the teacher, because the student is not capable of doing anything more than giving you their full attention and trying to put into practice what you're teaching them the way they understand it. So if they don't get it, that is on you. There's no such thing as a bad student who is putting in the effort. So it falls on you to solve it. It's problem solving. You're constantly having to figure out what's going to work. And that's where I learned. Like, I'll give you an example. This is something that it took me, a lifetime to learn, but I believe this so firmly. So, first off, have you guys ever had anybody tell you when teaching you disc golf, you need to figure out what works for you and do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the single worst piece of advice you've ever gotten in disc golf. You can't just throw the way that feels good to you. You can't just do your style. Okay, physics, biomechanics, that trumps everything. Okay, there's a right and a wrong way to throw. All right, you can't just go out there and do whatever you want. No, we figured this out. You must do things a certain way. However, have either of you, and it's a rhetorical question, have either of you ever watched a tutorial video or watched a pro in slow motion and tried to emulate their moves and throw like they do?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for sure. To limited success, but
That-
yeah.
Rhetorical question, everybody's basically done that. You probably noticed that it didn't work. Okay, that's not your fault. The reason it didn't work is not because those pros are better than you. It's not because they're more athletic than you. It's because they have different bodies than you do. All right? You and that pro you just watched have a different shape, a different size, different muscle mass in different area, different amounts of flexibility, different different range of motion. You have injuries, you have scar tissue, your mobility differs. It is not possible to watch another player throw, emulate their moves, their angles, their timing exactly, and have it work for you. It's not because they're better than you, it's because you're working with a different machine than them. So, seems like you're kind of stuck here, right? You can't do whatever you want, but at the same time, you can't emulate another player. So, what are we left with? Well, this is what is the core of the method that I teach. What I figured out is there are certain things that you must do when you throw. Okay? Can't throw any way you want to. You must do thing A. You must do thing B. You must do thing C on every single throw. Those are rules. However, once you're doing A, B, and C, I cannot tell your body how it moves from A to B or what the timing is going to look like from B to C. That is going to be individual to your body. So it's basically a hybrid between these two ideas. You must do certain things, but how you do them is going to be very individual. So what you're left with is like when you watch the Disc Golf Pro Tour, at first glance, or probably even to most people, it looks like everybody has, different techniques. That's not what I see. I see every player on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, male or female, effectively throwing the same way. But they're all throwing the same way, but they're all operating different machines to do it, so it's going to look different. That's all this is. And so what I teach is not to emulate a certain throw, but instead, here's the things you have to do. You got to do this thing. But if you do this thing, all these other things are going to happen automatically, and they will be correct. And in fact, you need to let them happen. All right? I'm going to give you just one example. If this is boring, I apologize for taking you down.
It's not. No, not at all. This is very interesting to me. I'm a perpetual MA2 player, so I'll take all the hints I can get.
All right. So everyone knows it's important to engage your hips. All right. Obviously, you can't read a book on sports without telling you the importance to engage your hips. Well, what players will do is they'll watch a video and they'll look at, well, where's that foot placement? When does that foot go down? And when do the hips turn? When do the hips engage at what angle? Okay. All of that is impossible to do and is impossible to teach. So I'm acknowledging right off the bat, engaging your hips are important. What I'm saying to you is, I cannot tell you when your hips rotate at what angle. I can't. Like, let's suppose, for just say hypothetically, I told you that once that foot hits the ground, your hips need to start rotating 17/100ths of a second later. It's impossible. You can't do it. But in this make believe thought experiment, let's suppose with practice, time, and effort, you got it down to where you could start rotating your hips at exactly 17/100ths of a second after that foot planted, just like that slow motion form breakdown you saw. Okay, fantastic. You did it. Okay, what happens when you're trying to throw 30 feet farther? When do the hips rotate? 2/100ths of a second earlier? Okay, that's fine. But what if you're now throwing a slower speed disc? Well, then you got to throw 8 miles an hour faster. Well, 8 miles per hour faster because it's 2 miles per hour slower to get. Now it's another 3/100ths of a second earlier. But there's now a headwind coming up. And because that it's a tailwind, the disc is going to glide more. So now you're going to have to go 2/100ths of a second sooner. But the hill slopes down 4 degrees. Like, okay, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about math calculations that you are not capable of doing. No one is. What you are capable of doing, however, and what you can be taught is to plant your foot first and then allow your hips to rotate when they rotate. Because 75% of people out there will start rotating their hips before their foot hits the ground, and all of those are wrong. Mm-hmm. Because you did something wrong that prevented your body from naturally rotating your hips and engaging your hips at the right time. So I can't teach you, engage your hips a fraction sooner. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And even if it did, it doesn't apply to the next throw that's different than the one you just did. But I can make sure that foot hits the ground before your hips rotate. And if you do that, your hips will automatically rotate at the right time. And I'll add one more piece to this. And I'll demonstrate why your hips rotate at the right time if you allow them to. So imagine when you're throwing your backhand, you're cracking a whip. Okay? Your foot is the handle of the whip, like a big bull whip. And your fingertips are the tip of the whip, okay? Which is a great analogy for throwing. So your foot is the handle, your fingertips are the tip. Now, let's suppose on this bull whip, I took a marker, and about 50% of the way up the whip, I made a mark on that whip, and I said, that represents your hips. And I said, when does that mark go past your head when you crack the whip? Well, the answer would be you have no idea and no control whatsoever. However, if I teach you to crack the whip will crack. The handle goes first, it accelerates, the end of the whip cracks. Now, for that to happen, that middle of the whip had to have passed your head at the right time. Your hips needed to engage at the right time. But you, as the person cracking the whip, at no point was trying to do something with the middle of the whip. What you did was put the whip in the right position and engage the handle first. And if you did that, the middle of the whip, as important as it is, happened automatically. You could not make that middle of the whip pass your face 100th of a second earlier or 3/100ths of a second later, even if you wanted to. And by the way, if you did either of those things, the whip doesn't crack. Handle went first. You allow the rest of the whip to happen. It'll happen automatically. You can trust it. If the whip's in the right position, handle goes first, boom, whip cracks. But it doesn't mean you can crack the whip any way you want to. That doesn't work. No, there's a right way. You got to do certain things to crack the whip. But if you do it, the whip cracks. So that's the same fundamental idea. There's so many parts of the game you can't teach. They're important, but they happen automatically. Hello. Want to say hi? Is that for the medicine? Thank you. So anyways, that's and basically every other part of the game follows those same rules. And this is my life's work. It took me a lifetime to figure this out. But every part of the throw is the same thing. When does this happen? It happens automatically. What about this other part? When does it happen? You have to make that part happen. But the one I just mentioned will happen automatically if you make that one happen. And it works. It works for everybody.
Yeah, very cool. So that was a bit of a little preview of your teachings from your website there. Do you want to plug that website again, just so our listeners can hear it?
ScottStokely.net. That's where I do. That's where you sign up for my 6-month online class. I'll give a quick pitch. It's called Become a Complete Disc Golfer. It's a couple live classes each month. I do other additional live streams. It's not just videos and a curriculum to work on. We do live classes, live Q&As, but you participate in a group. A big part of the class is that you have drills, steps to work on. Remember, do thing A, then thing B. Right now, I have four people who are my trainers that work for me that are fully trained in the method. So there's a total of 5 people monitoring the room where you're posting form reviews. So you're not just being told to do something and figure it out. You're posting videos, you're getting reviews, you go out and work on that thing we reviewed, you post more form review videos. No different than you would do in a private lesson. The difference is it takes time. You got to post a video, wait for the feedback, and go out and do it. But it's a 6-month class because we give you time to do it.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of it. I'm more proud of this than anything in teaching. This isn't something I just threw together. I put a lot of work into this, but the results are astonishing for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'll stop trying to sell something.
No, that's all right.
Start talking about
So you're currently on a world trip, and you are doing clinics, correct, along the way?
Yeah. So I'm doing clinics. The clinics are, they're free. Like if you live in Southeast Asia, I'm not charging you for the clinics. I'm not doing these to make money. The expats will pay like $20 for this group clinic. Like I think half the people haven't even paid that. I don't care. This is just wanting to teach disc golf. I've become very passionate about disc golf in developing countries. Like, I don't care how much I do to grow the sport in the U.S. and Europe. The sport's doing just fine without me. If I was gone tomorrow, it's not like, what's the sport going to do, right? But there are 150 countries in the world that could use disc golf. And my passion now, and probably for the rest of my life, is going to be working to help bring disc golf to these countries. The cool thing is all these countries have amazing people that are working their asses off to get courses put in and do all, like, they're doing all the hard work. But what I can do is I can use my name and my following to bring attention on them. I can help raise money for them. None of this is, there's not ever going to be any money in bringing disc golf to a developing country. This is not a business. But I want to spread disc golf around the world. You have to just see it. Like in Johor, Malaysia, there's 9 courses, and then people play. They're not just in the park getting dusty. Like the sport is catching on there. It's crazy.
That's
it's
great.
A beautiful thing, and
that's
I love
great
that,
to hear.
Sorry, Andre.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
One of the other things, aside from coaching, you've done a lot to give back to various communities, and one of the things that I love is that in the last year you were donating your tour winnings to not even just setting up your own charity and running it, but you were going out and giving your winnings to local charities in each of these communities where you were playing. I guess, where did that come from? And can you talk about sort of,
Sure.
what you get from that?
Yeah, so I've actually been doing this for a few years now. We got a lot of press this year because of the DGPT. Ironically, aside from one event, I gave less money this year, minus that one event, because I was playing against the children, and they're really good. I made a lot more money playing against the old dude. So the basic idea of this is that, remember I told you that I had some problems with substance abuse. Believe it or not, it's going on like 10 years now. I can't even believe it. It's like, it doesn't even feel like it's me at this point, but it was me. And when I came back to the sport, I was seeking out, honestly, I was seeking out my drug. I was trying to find those things that made me feel good, or made me feel proud, and made me feel good about myself, and have meaning and value, and all those things that we should all feel, but they don't just happen. At least they didn't to me. And I started teaching classes for kids and adults with special needs. So I would play a tournament on the weekend, but during the week I would stop in towns, and I would run a free class for anyone with special needs. It started off as autism, but I quickly just changed it to special needs, because we had kids who are paraplegic and Down syndrome and like CP and blind, and so it's just. And by the way, I always call them kids. Kids, half of them are adults. but I still call them I call them my kids. But I started teaching these classes, and I ended up doing 270 cities, teaching a class for kids with special needs. I would give them a free disc just for coming out. At a lot of the events, I was able to give them shirts. I actually, like those weren't sponsored. I actually just paid for that out of my own pocket. It wasn't a charity. I've never wanted to run a charity. I may wind up setting up a 503c. I don't even know what it's called. 501c3. I don't even know that. I literally don't even know what it's called, but it's like 501c3 for tax reasons, because I am dedicating a big part of my life to this. But I never wanted to turn it into a business. I did it out of my own pocket because this was my way of giving back to the universe in some weird metaphysical, not really sense. But that's something that I did. It made me feel good. It made me happy. When COVID hit, I couldn't do those classes. For a while we were very uncertain. We didn't know that outdoors was relatively safe, and the classes can be somewhat unpredictable because of the students in the class. So we couldn't do the classes, and I started figuring like I was missing doing something. And then I came up with the idea like, hey, what if I just donate my prize money to a local organization? Like I said, it's not a charity. The money doesn't come to me and then I send it to the organization. I would just give the tournament director the PayPal address of the local organization. And then I would say, whatever I win, send the money there. In fact, I would tell them to put in the name of the club, let the local club get the PR from it. I don't care. It's not my motive. I would post about it. And the two reasons I posted about it, one is because, shoot me for this. I'm a terrible person, but I like getting little thumbs up and praise for it. I'm such a bad guy, but I've been very honest. And a lot of my motives were, this is what made me feel good about myself. So when someone said, wow, man, you're a great guy, it made me feel good. That's why I'm doing it. So shoot me. But the other reason is I wanted to inspire other people to do the same. So at many tournaments, another player would donate their prize money. I've had juniors decline cash and have it donated to the prize money. Like at the Australian Open, the kid, I think that won the juniors division, I think he was from Perth, or whatever division he won, he turned down his cash and gave it to the same Down syndrome organization my prize money went to. This is a kid. It's a lot of money to a kid. Gave his money away. So inspire people to do it. So that's what I did. It's not a business. I've never taken a penny in donation. Like if you wanted to donate money to me, my answer would be go look up a local organization in your town. It's really easy to find. It'll take 10 seconds on Google and send the money to them. Because it's not a business. I didn't want to deal with the money or any of that BS. I just wanted to give away stuff. And I've enjoyed it. It's been, I don't know, it makes me feel good. Makes me happy.
I've heard that from a number of people that have experienced, addictions of all kinds, is that sometimes you have to stop looking into yourself so much and find, what you need by, projecting outward and seeing the rest of the universe and finding a place in that. Does that sort of fit in with you narrative wise? Do you feel like that's kind of helped you along your journey?
Yeah, I feel like, I wasn't the best person when I was doing the drugs. I wasn't out robbing houses. I wasn't, holding up liquor stores or anything like that. But I certainly was involved in a culture that wasn't doing good things. I did things I wasn't proud of. I was bad at my relationships. I harmed my relationship with my daughter, which we have a great relationship now. It's very much in the past. But I did feel like, well, I'm kind of a crap person, but I'm not a crap person. Well, what do I do? You got to make amends. You can't just say, well, I'm not doing that anymore. Well, no, I'm kind of in a net negative at that point because I had done things that weren't very cool. And now I'm just I just get a pass on those just because I didn't get caught and get in trouble for them. Well, that's bullshit. So I felt like if I could do things that kind of squared me up, like I'm doing good in the world, then it kind of is penance, maybe you'd say. I'm not religious, but I at this point, I've given back far more than I ever did wrong. So I think I'm square, but I'm not going to stop doing it now. I just enjoy it. And the cool thing is that I charge top dollar for my classes. Like, I'm the most expensive disc golf coach there is. Um, I charge the most money. I feel like I'm the best at it, but I charge the most money. But that's put me in a position where I'm no longer financially struggling. Like, I'm very comfortable financially. I do really well, but because I do really well, I can now work. I can now give away my prize money, and now I can do run these not run, sorry, but partner with a company there's a company out there. I can't talk about it. We're about to announce something really neat that's going to bring disc golf to developing countries. And I'm not making any money. I'll never make a penny off this. This is all just something I can do, but I can afford to do it because I'm successful in these other areas. In fact, my girlfriend, who's off camera, she doesn't like to be on camera. But do you remember what I said to you when I first met? I said to her, because I was growing this teaching business. I knew where it was going. Like, I could see the writing on the walls. I was already, I was booked 4 private lessons a day, as far like I saw what I could do with this teaching thing, right? And I saw the money I could make at it. And I told her, I said, good news and bad news. This is 3 years ago. I said, the good news is I'm going to be making a lot of money. So the bad news is I'm going to be giving most of it away. And do you remember what I said? I said, look, I totally understand if you don't think that's okay, but then we're not going to be a good fit. Like, you're going to have to be okay with the fact that I'm allocating my money and doing things that I'm going to do. And like, you can't have a problem with this. And she's like, she doesn't care about money at all. So perfect. But I told her in advance that I'd be giving away a large part of my income. And I have.
That's great.
But again, look, I'm not taking food off my table. I'm not altruistic in the traditional altruistic sense. I'm not out there suffering for the thing I'm doing. I mean, I do well, but that puts me in a position to do good. But I still eat every day. Still doing okay.
That's great. Not eating bacon from purses all the time.
No, I eat purse bacon still.
Oh, good, good.
Listen, if you don't like purse bacon, unsubscribe from the channel. Or not.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
So we're not. I think they'll be fine. So we're not a developing country necessarily here in Canada, but we are, I would say, a little bit behind some of the other countries in terms of disc golf. And one of the things we just announced on this channel is the first, or at least the first in a long time, national disc golf tour that will be fully covered on video here in Canada. So we were wondering if you had any advice as somebody that's sort of seen the growth of the game professionally in the US and around the world for a country that is just sort of trying to build out a more competitive and cohesive national scene for the professional level of disc golf.
Fantastic. The problem with Canada is it's just so damn big. It'll be hard for a person to be a road warrior in Canada, right? I think that's just an inherent challenge that y'all are going to face. But any advice for it? I would say that one of the things that this is the disc golf in the U.S. is going through this, and it'll go through this in Europe. But the professional side of the sport and the every other part of the sport, they have separate agendas, and they need to be recognized as having separate agendas. It's like, well, what does the DGPT do for, spreading disc golf awareness? And I'm like, don't get me wrong. I think the DGPT is crushing it in all their things they're doing, but that's not really their job. Their job is the Pro Tour. And then when people look at the PDGA and they're like, what's the PDGA doing for the pro players? In my mind, it's like, what should they be doing? I don't think that's their job. Like, their job is the growth of the sport and the overseeing of the masses of players. But those are two different interests, and they don't line up together. And if you try to line them up together, I think it's a fail, because like, the PDGA shouldn't be thinking about player prize money. That should be the last thing on their mind. The DGPT, on the other hand, should be thinking heavily about how much prize money the players are earning. Two different organizations. I'm glad they're working together. I don't know if they always will, but they are for now. So I think that's the two things. I think that if you're starting a tour in your own country, I think the tour should be focused on the tour and own the fact that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to grow a professional tour and not, I hate to say this, but not care as much about the other parts of the sport, because there should be other organizations, like every single local club. Local clubs should be all about running the sport or growing the sport in that town. So they're separate things, and there's nothing wrong with the tour focusing on the tour. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Like, that's their job, and they should be proud of that and own that. But if they try to do too much, then it gets like, I don't think you're going to do either thing well.
Yeah, and like one of the ideas behind the tour itself is to showcase the Canadian professionals, because they don't have that outlet that a lot of other people, especially in the States, have. And you know, the idea is that there's a ripple down effect from that, you know, being able to showcase those pros, and that kind of you mentioned, you can't handle all of that, but in a way, you know, we're at least trying to contribute a little bit to those through the trickle down effect. More on the Canadian side of things, what do you think it would take to get more Canadian disc golfers down playing on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, or even in Europe, or, you know, that kind of stuff? Do you think it's feasible?
Yeah, for sure. So here's what I would say. So first off, let me just kind of back up. You're absolutely right. I mean, the NBA, the existence of the NBA does more to promote basketball at local parks than any other organization in the world, simply by existing. Like, they don't need to run a youth program in order to promote youth basketball. They simply need to go out and be the best, and youths will play basketball, right? So you do promote the sport just by existing. As far as getting more players, yeah, it's just a matter of talent level. I mean, it's a perfect democracy. That's not really the right word. It's a perfect free market. Like, if you're good enough, you can beat them. Look at Thomas Gilbert. You know, Thomas Gilbert in the World Championships this year. Not a single player would be surprised. Nobody would be like, "Holy cow, he came from nowhere!" Right? The guy's as good as anyone in the world. You know, back not that long ago, it was Jeff Moulton or Mike Sullivan before him. Mike Sullivan finished second at the World Championships from Canada. Obviously, Elaine King, arguably the GOAT. FPO is from Etobicoke, Ontario. So, I mean, Canadians have had representation. But, I mean, you know, if 5% of the players in the world are in Canada, then I would expect, you know, on average, 5% of the players on tour to be from Canada. Like, that's just a natural thing. I mean, there's just more people down in the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, by saying more people playing, it doesn't matter how many people are, but as far as people, the number of people playing, there's just more people. So I think, you know, just if you just keep going, you're going to get your players to come from everywhere, just like any other sport. I mean, remember the U.S. The U.S. used to be a very American sport as far as the players. I mean, when I was younger, every player came from America, mostly. They would go recruit, you know, some 7-footer from you know, Manute Bol would come out of Africa or something like that, right? They would go down, but like, what is it? King came from China, but like it was American. That's not anymore. Like, I think that the number one draft pick at the next draft is going to come out of, I think he's in France right now. The kid that I was reading about. So it's naturally going to happen.
Cool.
So, by the way, you have, I mean, 50% of the GOATs have come from Canada,
Well,
even though you're only 5%.
I wish there was more video of Elaine King that was relevant to people these days, because I don't think people really fully understand her place in the history of disc golf.
Well, and so now, by the way, Elaine King is a perfect example. Elaine King, you could easily make the case she's the greatest of all time in the FPO division. She certainly has the most accolades. But does Elaine King at her best in the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, does her game, that Elaine, transported to the future, compete against Ella Hansen and Paige Pierce? she's going to have a heck of a time. She's going to be losing 100 feet of distance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could the old Elaine compete with those players on an 80s course? Now, that's an interesting question, because Elaine King's game was developed for those courses. I would argue that she would be competitive, but I mean, like on a modern course, you just can't lose 100 feet of distance every single hole. I mean, think about it. I mean, you have two players of virtually identical skill levels who throw a drive. Whether one's a little better than the other, they're pretty close in skill level. But then, on average, one of them has a 200-foot approach shot, one of them has a 330-foot approach shot. I mean, it does not take long before that player pulls ahead every single round they play. I mean, distance matters. Yeah. So does it translate to the modern game? Probably not. But is she the greatest of all time because she developed her game for the courses she played in? Arguably so.
I was thinking about a better way. We love her. I was thinking of a better way to ask that question. Ken Climo versus Paul McBeth, if they both grew up in the same era, had access to all the same training and practice and money to be able to tour full time, just based on their killer instinct and competitive nature, who would you take in a tournament between those two?
If they grew up at the same time, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, Paul's game is developed for modern courses. On a modern course, it's obvious what the result's going to be. But does Paul go back in time to the courses Ken played on and beat Ken? I mean, obviously they would both beat each other sometimes, right? It's not 100%. But Ken's game was developed for those courses. I mean, now Paul had a sidearm that Ken didn't have, which is a massive weapon. So it's a hard question to answer. That one is tough. I can talk about the modern game and an older player's game at that level going, you're going to have a hard time throwing 400 feet on a 12,000-foot course. Like, that's going to be really tough. So my take has always been, in the modern game, the modern player wins hands down on a modern course. But a modern player back in the old days, I think it's a lot more debatable. But the thing I'll tell you, though, the best modern player comes from a pool of players 20 times as large, coming from real athletes, learn skills on YouTube. You still have a higher skill set. So I will tell you this. Paul does not beat Ken 100% of the time on 90s courses. Like, if Paul was around in the 90s, it's not like Ken Climo has 0 world titles. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe he'd have 10. I think Paul wins some. Now the question is how many of each. That doesn't take anything away from how great Ken was. I mean, that guy beat me every damn time we played, just about. It's the most annoying thing in the entire world. I won't sleep tonight just because of these questions.
Well, I've got a related question. I've got a couple of quick hitters, and then that's all I've got for questions. One, between playing in a final round against Ken Climo, or B, lining up for the now pretty famous putt that you had in the Big Money Skins match after you threw the most ridiculous forehand I think I've ever seen. When were you more nervous, facing down that 10-footer last year, or playing in the final 9 of a world championship against Ken Climo?
I wasn't nervous after that skin shot. I wasn't. It's an interesting story about that. Is that I'm going to go big picture. You've already probably figured out I don't give short answers. So whether your audience likes that or not, I can't help it. I drank coffee. But I always like to give more complete answers than yes or no. So I have this belief that it's going to make me sound like an idiot to a measurable percentage of your listeners, because I'm going to contradict every other smart person out there in the world of sports psychology. Okay, I don't believe the mental game is anywhere near as important as it's made out to be. Now,
hot take.
You guys are probably thinking that I'm a moron, but let me Make my case with an open mind. You're welcome to disagree with me, but keep an open mind as to the logic behind what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm.
Let's suppose you go to college in the U.S. Let's say you go to a famous basketball college. You go to the University of Kentucky. They're known for one thing, basketball. All right, you probably got, I don't know, let's say 5,000 male students on the campus of University of Kentucky. Who's on the basketball team? Okay, is it the 12 smartest students? Is it the 12 most well-adjusted students? Is it the 12 with the most underdeveloped frontal lobes causing them to not get anxiety because they have fewer beta waves in pressure situations? Or is it the 12 players who are tall, athletic, and practice the most? Okay,
I would say the
when I
latter.
look at what made those 12 players the best. Well, what made them the best is, well, first off, none of them are 5'2". All right, they're all super athletic. Now, there's some things about their mental game that was strong. They train hard. They practiced hard. They were out shooting free throws at midnight every single night when they were a kid, when their mom was yelling at them to go to bed. They were still shooting free throws. That's mental. Okay, that their physical was developed because of their drive, their motivation. So there is something to be said for it. But when it comes down to it, are those the most 12? Okay, pick 12 basketball players. Is that the 12 most well-adjusted students on campus? Really? Are those the 12 the most calm under pressure? They don't have tempers. They don't get it. Like, really? I don't see it. I see the best athletes. So I am convinced that, not that mental game isn't important, but when I rank it on the list of things, good mechanics, training, natural physical gifts, I put it way down the list just because of the correlation that I see. I believe this. So, because that's what I feel, like when I stepped up to that putt to win the skins match, what I've taught thousands upon thousands of players is that when you putt from your center, you aim with your follow through, and you leave your hand up, this disc goes there. When you do this, the disc goes there. When you're nervous and you do this, the disc goes there. When you're calm and you do this, the disc goes there. When you're angry and you do this, the disc goes there. When you don't care whether you make it or miss, you do this, the disc goes there. When everything's on the line and you do this, the disc goes there. None of those mental things affect the fact that when your hand does this, putt from your middle, aim with your follow through, leave your hand up, nothing up here changes the outcome of the disc. So when I stepped up to that putt, all I thought was mechanics. Aim with your follow through, leave your hand up. Just leave your hand up. If I leave my hand up and I'm looking at my hand and the chains are right behind my hand, doesn't matter how much money's on the line, that disc is going in. And therefore, I'm not nervous. That's a true story. Now, I will admit to something, though, that has come as a complete shock to me. And this is like totally weird because our brains are so, I always say our brains are assholes to us. I have had so much anxiety since that day about missing that putt. Like, I've woken up at night thinking, oh my God, what if I had missed that? Like, every time I've watched a video of me making that putt, I've thought, I've been nervous for me. So I've had anxiety after the fact. Like watching a video of Alex Honnold climbing El Cap without a rope, and you think he's going to fall every time, even though you know he's not going to. So I'm not like this perfectly mental human who doesn't have a weird brain and that gets in the way I do. But at the time, I wasn't nervous. I was much more nervous when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of anxiety because I kind of had a similar mental approach, but I had more back then, just because I was less mature mentally. So there was a lot more. I was more riding on it. I mean, now I'm a different human than I was then. So I was more nervous back then. That's a really long answer to a simple question, right?
All right.
No,
I've
I
got
like
one
that.
other quick one. What is your favorite innovation in yeah. The question will be quick. What's your favorite innovation in the disc technology? And I'm saying this as an avowed lover of the Castoplast Berg. Do you prefer the Berg or the high-speed driver in terms of innovations to the technical disc itself?
Okay, so the answer is I like them both. It depends on the hole. Like, what's your favorite disc? Well, the answer is, well, what's the hole like? Like, tell me what hole I'm on, and I'll tell you my favorite disc for that hole. Um, First off, yeah, I'm a big fan of MVP. I love MVP. Brad and Chad, I've talked to them recently. I love those guys. I'm really happy for them. Really happy for Simon. Uh, so yeah, like I love MVP. But it's not about that. It's about throwing the right disc for every hole. So you want to talk about Berg versus high speed disc. I'll give a little teaching lesson here. How about that? When possible, you always want to throw the slowest disc, the slowest category of disc you can reach the hole with. Okay, don't worry about speed 8 versus speed 9, but you basically have your high speed drivers. I'm on a small screen. You have your high speed drivers, you have your fairway drivers, or often called just drivers. You have your mid range. You have your putt and approach, which I tend to think are usually beveled edge putters. Lunas, AVRs, etc. And then you have your non-beveled putters. You have your Bergs, the slowest discs. But those are categories of discs. So, like I said, ignore the speed, but think categories. As a general rule, you want to throw the slowest category of disc that you can comfortably reach the hole with. Now, I'll explain why. It's a mathematical thing. So let's say you, and I'm pointing at you, and I, we both step up to a 250-foot hole. No, actually, no, I'm sorry. The three of us, you, and me, we step up to a 250-foot hole. Okay? You throw your driver, you throw your mid-range, I throw my putter. 250-foot hole, we all throw perfect shots. Well, then we're all underneath the basket, okay? Throwing a good shot does not mean you chose the right disc. You can throw the wrong disc and it works. That's the first lesson. Just because you succeeded with the disc doesn't mean you threw the right disc. Bad choices still work out sometimes. Okay, so now we step up to the next 250-foot hole. You throw a driver, you throw a mid-range, I throw my putter. All three of us make the identical error. We all throw 10% too hard. So as far as what we did, we all made the exact same mistake. We threw 10% harder than we intended. 250-foot hole. Your driver goes 290 feet. Your mid-range goes 275 feet. My putter goes 260. Okay? 45-foot putt, 25-foot putt, 10-foot putt. All because I chose the slowest disc for the hole. So on that hole, you cannot argue that the Berg is not a better disc than my Destroyer, because with an identical error, I still have a tap-in putt. You have a very missable putt. Slowest disc. That's why you choose the slowest disc for the hole. So what's my favorite disc? Well, on a 250-foot hole, it's my Berg. Or another slow disc. But I don't throw my Berg on 500-foot holes, ever. So that's it. So, I will add one thing to that, though. And this, I'm going to piss off every manufacturer out there, but every company out there, especially big companies, has a mid-range disc that flies straight. They're all great. You really can't go wrong. I mean, even if they're slightly different from one to the other, it doesn't mean one's going to make you more successful than the other. It's the golfer's fallacy. The golfer's fallacy is just that next club is what's going to make the difference. I mean, every ball golf commercial out there shows graphics and diagrams to show you why this putter is going to make more putts go in. And every single golfer out there knows that's bullshit. And every single one of them buys that putter anyways. Yeah. Right? It's what we do, human nature. So I can say this, but that's the reality. Like, if you like throwing disc-wrapped discs and your buzz flies straight for you, you don't have to look past that. Your buzz is going to work great for you. So as far as what disc, my favorite disc, every model out there is basically a version of from other companies, with one exception. That's the Berg. The Berg on the top is a little bit different. No, but there's not a Berg with other companies. The Berg does have this like concave lip on top that makes it, I find it easier to grip and to throw. But
you tried-
eventually, they're all going to be the same.
Have you tried throwing the armadillo from
I
Lone
have
Star?
not.
I just got two because I'm also a berg thrower, and I just got two to test out, so just to try it out. But
Are
curious.
you cheating on the bird?
It's funny. So I joined a Discord channel, and I was asked I was asked where my berg is, and I said it's in my bag, and I take it out and I cry and whisper to myself that I'm not a cheater because it's just so good.
Yeah. No. So first off, the berg is not one of those old. Bergs don't believe in monogamy. Bergs are so pure in themselves that they're not threatened by other discs. Okay. Bergs basically have the opinion of any good partner, which is go ahead and try out that other partner. He'll come back to me. So, go try your other disc. The berg will be there waiting for you with open arms.
All right, there we go.
You heard it here from Scott Stokely. The one-speed disc is the best technological innovation in the disc golf world.
No, hands down. Oh, so you're asking about the best. I would say the best one's the baskets. Okay, I don't know what you say about modern baskets. Oh, this veteran basket is better than the Chain Star, which is better than the blah blah blah. Okay, y'all are crazy. Every single modern basket is phenomenal. All right, when I started playing, baskets had 10 chains. It had one ring with 10 chains. And I am not exaggerating. This is like I am not exaggerating. The way Ricky Wysocki, for example, now he would change his putt if he played back then. But if you look at the way, just say Ricky Wysocki, a pretty firm, but not the hardest, but pretty firm putter. If Ricky Wysocki hit dead center perfectly flat, 60% of those putts don't stay. Literally 60, 70% don't stay. And then, oh my God, this was revolutionary. The next baskets came out, and instead of 10 chains, they had 12. And we're like, oh my God, than this. These things actually catch way better than the old 10. I mean, those 10 chain baskets were a nightmare. 12 chains were great. And then someone came up with the idea of interchains. But the interchains were something you bought separately. Baskets didn't come with an inner set of chains. You bought them as an add-on. But here's the thing. The way the baskets were designed is you had 12 poles, 12 bars going out from the middle of the pole on top for the 12 chains. Well, the inner set of chains were 6 additional chains, but they went on one of those poles where there was already a chain. So basically every other chain had an inner set of chains, but they weren't in between the chains. They were right behind the one in front of it. Yet they were still so much better than they were without them because it just added more weight. And when those inner set of chains came out, I mean, we lost our mind. It was incredible. And then when they finally started making baskets with the inner chains, it was the Mach 3s. If you've ever putted on Mach 3s, there's still a lot of them out there. They're terrible compared to modern baskets. But at the time, that was a massive leap forward. The Mach 3s, like they caught most putts. Like you might have 1 or 2 cut throughs or spit outs around. But that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 1 spit out per round. I don't mean like you hit the side and you blame the basket. I'm talking about like a dead center cut through or spit out, the ones that were perfect.
Yeah.
You could have 1.5 per round, and that was amazing. So when I look at the modern baskets now, there is no such thing as the worst of the modern baskets. Like I have an opinion. I think there's one that I think is slightly worse than the others, but I'm not going to dog on it because it's just an opinion. But that basket is so superior to anything we had in the old days. Like it still catches 98% of putts. It rarely affects the outcome of the match. So the biggest innovation is how far baskets have come. Even though everybody hates, everybody complains about the baskets, it's like y'all are a bunch of babies. Any players, like no older player in their right mind is complaining about basket technology. Like we're so grateful for how they are.
Awesome. Well, that's it for me. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Matt, you got anything else?
Yeah, well, just one more time. What's the name of your book? And I did notice, by the way, I respect this a lot. You narrated your own audio book, right?
I did narrate my own audiobook, and actually, it sounds really, really good. And I'll just to keep the theme of the day, I'm gonna tell a short story about that because I want to explain what I learned about narrating audiobooks. Uh, I'm not good at this. I am not good at reading things. I'm not a bad speaker, but I'm not good at reading and sounding good. And what I found out is that when you narrate an audiobook, if you're me, I spent about 2 weeks, did like 6 to 8 pages a day. So every day we would only complete 6 to 8 pages of the audiobook, sometimes 10 if it was a good day, because every single sentence, every paragraph, stop, you didn't pause long enough, stop, there was a comma there, you need to enunciate more, stop, you didn't put enough emotion, stop, you said stop, you breathe, whatever. And so we recorded sentence by sentence by sentence. And after I was done, I was like, this is great. Thank God. That was the longest 2 weeks of my damn life. And we listened to some of it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And I go, you can't release this. This is terrible. Like we got to find someone else to read it. This is, I refuse to let you release this. And he's like, dude, we're not done yet. Now I need a couple months to work on it. What are you talking about? A couple of months? He says, yeah. He says, that's just like phase 1 is you reading it. So phase 2 was I went on my merry way. And by the way, it was Will McCaskill in Tennessee who did all this work for me. Then he goes in and he eliminates every breath noise. He is constantly adjusting the audio volumes. Every time my mouth might have been a half an inch further away from the microphone, well, that's all adjustable. Then he goes in and does things like at the end of every paragraph, you don't notice this when you're listening to an audiobook, but there's a set amount of time till the next paragraph that's consistent between paragraphs. And when you finish a chapter, the space between the next chapters is set. Like it's invisible to you, but you notice it when it's not there. And by the time he was done with it, I listened to it and I'm like, holy crap, I sound like I did a really good job. And the best part of all, everybody thinks I did. like he
sounds great.
Did all the work, and everybody's like, wow, you're so good at reading your book. And I'm like, I know, right? I'm great at everything. Yes, I did audiobook, and it does sound it. I'm very proud of how it came out, but I don't get any of the credit for it. Like the audio person will, he was a genius. Told you. Great. That's the last long story. I learned that. Well, that's
growing up disc golf. You got to check it out. Scott, do you have anything else that you want to talk to about the Canadian audience? The floor is yours. Anything else you want to tell your Canadian fans?
Audience, let's see here. Oh, God, I love maple syrup. Buy my book. No. What other stereotypes can I say? I can't stand those people from Nova Scotia. Have you ever noticed that every person from Nova Scotia is just awful? Oh my God, those are I don't know. Does anybody hate people from Nova Scotia? I don't think.
No,
they're the nicest people in the whole country.
Okay, all right. They're nowhere near as cool as Newfoundland. No, I look. I just thank you so much for having me on. I'm unable to finish a podcast without saying something stupid before I log off. So
that's all right. Just so you know, we don't edit our podcast, so it all just goes right up.
Yeah. Actually, I will tell you one more stupid story because that's what I like to do. So what I've only had a job for like 3 years or 3.5 years in my life. Like I've been on tour, I've been running my own internet businesses, but I actually took a job for a few years back because I needed a steady income for the first time, and I wasn't happy. I'm not happy in a cubicle, right? But I'm sitting in a cubicle one day and I'm just bored stiff because that's what you do when you're in a cubicle. That's your job definition, is being bored stiff. And I'm in my cubicle, and one day it occurred to me, I've always hated racism. I hate racism. It's stupid. It's ignorant. It's gross. It's just so distasteful to me. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've never tried it though. Like, who's to say I wouldn't love it? Like, how do I know that racism isn't for me? Like, maybe racism is my thing, and I never discovered it because I never wanted to be racist. So I was like, I'm going to try being racist for a week, just to see how it fits. So I was like, who can I be racist? And I'm like, I think I'll be racist against people from Nova Scotia. And by the way, I know Nova Scotia is not a race, okay? But I'm not like the whitest place on earth to be racist against. But I said, I'm going to be racist against people from Nova Scotia. So I started doing research, and I started digging up all the dirt I could find on Nova Scotia. Like, I was researching their minor league hockey team and seeing who got divorced from of infidelity. And I would just rip on them and talk about how so-and-so Claude Pierre doesn't hustle back on defense when, and how Halifax and how people in the logging industry are I don't know. I spent a week being racist against Nova Scotia. And the funny thing was, everyone got the absurdity of this. There were 3 or 4 people from Nova Scotia actually wrote me. They're like, dude, what do you got against Nova Scotia? Oh, perfect timing. All right. I think I got to get ready to prepare for surgery.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome. That was a great interview. That was great.
That was so rad.
Yeah. It was
what a legend, hey? Have you ever done a podcast from a hospital room?
I have not. No, but now I can say that I've done a podcast with Scott Stokely from a hospital room. So that's
I've done 2 or 3 of those, to be fair.
Right. Yeah. I also have to say I'm sorry for the audio. I don't know if it was the wire routers in the hospital, but there was a little bit of cutting out there. So apologize for that, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. So
I don't think you'll get another interview like that.
Not like that.
No,
definitely.
No matter what you do.
That's a Northern Flights first and last.
Yeah. So definitely go check out Scott Stokely, scottstokely.net, I believe it was. And check out his YouTube channel and Instagram and everything else, because he's got a lot of knowledge and he's trying to pass it on to everyone. So, and if you are in
one of those clinics,
I was gonna say
mental game,
follow him on Instagram, find out where he's going, and if he's in your area, definitely worth signing up for one of his clinics. So
I think he's on a 2-year Europe kick though, right?
Yeah, I'm talking to our European listeners.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. I think Kyle Klein will be over there pretty soon. So Kyle, not saying that you need the help, but maybe check out one of the Scott Stokely clinics. He's older than you, significantly, so he must be wiser.
One day we got to get Kyle to do the podcast.
He will.
He'll be on.
Max work.
He said,
I think.
I just texted me. He says not next week, but he doesn't say not the week after. So,
yeah. Amazing. That's all we got for today. Thank you so much to our patrons. You guys mean a lot to us. You guys make this all possible. All this equipment, lighting, cameras, microphones, hasn't been paid for yet.
And if we get to, what do you say? If we get to 15 patrons, 20 patrons, Andre will take the Canucks jerseys off the wall.
Yeah. We'll
Actually,
see.
do you want to do a fun one for that? I got 10 seconds. In the past, I have never been able to grow a mustache that had the same color hair as the top of my head. So for 10 years, I dyed my mustache whenever I grew it. I'll bring the black dye back for the stash if we get 15 patrons.
I gotta find out. I'm pretty sure we're close. I think.
If we're over 15 and I've already said that, I'll be in big trouble.
13.
13? No. I thought we had 6. I thought we had to triple up here.
No. We got lots of supporters.
Patrons and listeners, if you're not a patron, it's you can for the the old cliche of less than a cup of coffee or the price of a cup of coffee. It's less. You know how expensive coffee is these days.
Yeah,
this podcast is more affordable than a cup of coffee. 1 cup of coffee. Tell your friends. Tell 2 of your friends, and Jesse will dye his mustache black. 5 more patrons, and Andre will rip those dirty heathen Canucks jerseys off of his wall.
And I'll put them on this wall.
Hey, well.
I'm going to get fired. And I work for my family business.
And how about 25 patrons? I'm going to shave the beard into like a handlebar. What do you call that? When it just goes down like this. Is
That's
that
a handlebar.
Handlebar, yeah.
The old Hulk
Yeah,
Hogan
I'll
classic.
shave. I'll shave the full beard into the Hulk Hogan handlebars.
Okay. How long do we have to keep these
25
for?
patrons.
How long do we have to keep it for? Because this could happen
until it ruins our
tomorrow.
jobs and or relationships.
My mustache has already ruined my
You have
relationship.
to keep it until we hit. You do it.
No,
when
no,
we
no,
hit
no, no.
50,
Don't put another one
you
on.
have to keep it until we hit 20.
See, the good thing about shaving is the rest of my beard will just grow back eventually.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And your
we
dye
are gonna
will eventually wear out.
We are
Yeah,
gonna
can
set
you
up.
imagine I have roots in my mustache?
It's like the opposite of frosted tips in your mustache. What do you call frosted tips, but they're black, like burnt ends?
Yeah, I kind of have burnt ends. Great.
And we are gonna get the mustache camera set up once you hit because we'll be able to afford the mustache camera once we.
With
hit
the extra $3 a
so.
month will really.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Cool. And once again, thank you, Disc Golf Park, Maddie at Disc Golf Park. We really appreciate your support as well. Yeah, huge support for a long time since the start. So
You guys done did me a bamboozle. This was not fair.
I was trying to pull it up. Real fast for you, but
Well, you guys better start subscribing to the old Patreon because if I'm going to do it, I want it to be worth it.
yeah.
And thanks for the guys that already do.
Yeah, we appreciate it. All right, Matt, take us out.
From all of us here at Parked Pro and the Northern Flights podcast, burnt ends on the face, baby. 2 more. Let's go.
You stink.